Did you know the NBA has lost a staggering $21 billion to injuries over the past 20 years? That is billion with a B, y'all. And that's just one example of how injuries can kill performance and cost teams and players a lot of money. In this episode, we'll break down the impact of strength and conditioning on reducing those injuries, on improving performance and the economic cost of injuries, and most importantly, how strength and conditioning coaches bring value far beyond the weight room. This one's packed with a ton of insights, and you won't want to miss it. Let's explore. Welcome back to the Performance Insider podcast, which explores human and sports performance by navigating the intersections of science, coaching, and life. I'm your host, Ramsey Nijam, and today we're discussing the economic impact of injuries and the true value of a strength and conditioning coach. And in particular, we're going to talk about a staggering statistic from the NBA, a space that I spent 5 years in as a strength and conditioning coach, to really highlight the value that strength and conditioning can have. So let's dive right in. The value of strength and conditioning coaches should not be understated. Now, am I biased? Of course I'm biased. I take great pride in my role and impact, and the impact of the industry at large. Coaches like you listening and watching this. I believe wholeheartedly that we make a positive impact across disciplines, developing athletes physically, mentally, and beyond. While there are numerous ways strength and conditioning coaches provide benefit, I want to highlight just a few today. Specifically, let's explore 3 areas: the economic impact of performance and injury, the impact of training on reducing injury risk, and the benefits of strength and conditioning coaches. Now, the economics of winning, performance, and injury can be summarized as follows. When athletes perform better, their teams have a better chance of winning. When athletes are healthy and available to play, their teams have a better chance of winning. And winning games has a positive economic impact for the players and the team. Now, to provide some context, let's break down dollars lost to injury, because ultimately injuries have an economic impact due to this dollar lost to injury example. Now, to provide context, let's break down the dollars lost to injury so we can better understand how professional teams, and in this case NBA teams, lose money when players aren't available. So when a player is injured, they cannot play. And when they're not available to play, the team is still going to pay them their salary, right? Effectively just to sit on the bench in rehab, of course. So to give you a tangible example, let's use LeBron James, because we all know who LeBron James is. LeBron James is getting paid by the Lakers $47 million. A regular season is 82 games. $47 million divided by 82 is $573,000 per game. The Lakers pay this salary even when LeBron is not available to play. So for every game LeBron does not play in, the Lakers effectively lose $573,000. Now, technically, it's not an actual loss, but to keep things simple, this is kind of how dollars lost to injury is calculated. And dollars lost to injury is largely influenced by games lost to injury and which players specifically are unavailable to play. So, for example, LeBron not playing costs more than a rookie not playing, right? LeBron's salary of $573,000 is much higher on a per game basis and a total basis than a rookie contract. So dollars lost to injury is going to be influenced by games being lost and which players are actually not playing in those games. This is a very crude example, but it makes it easy to understand how injuries impact teams and economics. And recently, there's been some research that's come out that calculated the economic impact of injuries on NBA teams over the past 23 years. The NBA lost $21 billion due to injury between 2000 and 2023. $21 billion, y'all, with a B. Each team lost roughly $500 million to $1 billion during this period. Okay, so these economics present 2 targets for the performance and medical staffs. The first is reducing the risk of injuries, and the second would be to reduce the number of days to recover from those injuries. Injuries are going to happen, but as they happen, can we actually reduce the amount of days that players are losing due to those injuries, right? Can we get them back faster? You don't want to rush it, but if you can get them back faster, then ultimately you'll save money from an economic perspective. We never want to risk the athlete re-injuring, so we're not going to put the economics above their health, but that's how the math would shake out here. To accomplish these targets, comprehensive strength and conditioning plans should be put into place. The players should obviously buy into these programs because training reduces injury rates. In fact, warm-ups alone have an injury-reducing impact. We see that with the amount of research out there on FIFA 11, for example. Strength training in particular has a strong effect, reducing acute sports injuries by 67% and overuse injuries by 53%. Moreover, increasing strength training volume and intensity is associated with reducing the risk of sports injuries. And we can see that by this Lawrenson article, which is extremely popular. It's one that I love referencing. But with this forest plot, we see that the impact of training is clear. 50% on overuse injuries, 67% on acute injuries. And so how are we actually accomplishing this, right? How does training actually reduce the risk of injuries? The primary mechanisms, we have indirect and we have direct. Direct mechanisms involve making the target tissues more robust, such as increasing eccentric strength to reduce hamstring strains, right? Indirect mechanisms have these carryover effects, such as improving exercise technique and global coordination, strengthening of the adjacent tissues, which can reduce the joint loads, and better psychological perception of high risk situations, right? When players are training at an intensity and volume, oftentimes there's this psychological effect as well. So it's not just physiological, there's a psychology at play as well. So from a training and injury relationship perspective, we have these indirect and these direct mechanisms. So we've talked economic impact, and in particular, we talked about the NBA and that 21 billion, which led us into strength training being the primary intervention that we can use to reduce those injuries and offset recovery time, which ultimately would decrease that economic impact or the burden of injuries on teams and players. And finally, what I want to do is just highlight how strength and conditioning coaches are bringing endless amounts of value, right? Beyond just writing comprehensive S&C programs and coaching them for safety and performance, I also want to talk about the buy-in that we create and highlight supervision and feedback, two direct mechanisms that having a strength and conditioning coach can play a role in improving performance and reducing those risks of injury. In regards to supervision, research has shown that muscle adaptations are improved when training is performed with supervision, such as with a strength coach. S&C coaches can monitor technique, make real-time adjustments to the training plan, motivate the athlete, and provide an element of accountability. And regarding feedback, strength and conditioning coaches provide valuable verbal and visual feedback during the training process. Kinetic and kinematic feedback has been shown to improve acute performance by 6 to 10%, as well as chronic adaptations. So the presence of a strength and conditioning coach improves muscle adaptations. It will improve performance outputs like jump heights and speeds, and it will reduce the risk of injury. So beyond just supervision, safety and performance cueing, visual feedback, kinetic and kinematic feedback, strength and conditioning coaches often have knowledge far beyond the weight room and bring value in other areas that are going to impact that performance and injury outputs, right? Needs analysis, workload management, nutritional and supplementation interventions, recovery methods, mental health, return to performance, fostering this coach-athlete relationship, cultural impact, and more. So whether it's improving performance or reducing the risk of injury, training oversight or providing benefits outside of the weight room, the value of the S&C coach should not be understated. Exactly what we said to kick this off. Now, if any of this resonates with you, then I think you're in the right place, and it would mean the world to me if you hit